Hi, I'm Kira Carey, and welcome to Cloudsmith's monthly webinar on all things cloud native, package management, and supply chain security. Cloudsmith is your cloud native universal artifact management platform. So attacks on your open source in your software are on the rise. They use vulnerabilities in open source like Log4Shell in order to get into your system. So today we're going to be talking about frameworks to help software developers consume open source more securely. And so that framework is the Secure Supply Chain Consumption Framework, or S2C2F. It was created by Microsoft and it was donated to OpenSSF in order for everybody to benefit from it. So it's a practical guide to incrementally improve the security and how you consume open source. And so today we're really lucky to be joined by Adrian Diglio, who will talk us through this framework. So Adrian is a principal PM manager at Microsoft, and he leads the secure software supply chain team to secure Microsoft's end-to-end software supply chain. So I'm going to bring him in now. Hey, Adrian, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so the first question I'm going to ask you is, why did Microsoft feel the need to create this framework?
That's a great question. Microsoft loves open source and we use it extensively. However, we were starting to see the trends ourselves about attacks on open source and our developers, accidentally pulling in these compromised packages. So we really wanted to secure ourselves against OSS supply chain threats, and we started on that journey in 2019, and then after the SolarWinds incident happened, it was a little bit like hair on fire, across the software industry, and everybody was looking for answers, and we felt that we've been using this framework in practice to secure ourselves, and that this was one piece to the overall supply chain puzzle, and we wanted to enable other people to secure themselves the same way that we did.
Yeah, I remember I was a software engineer until recently, and I wanted to do the right thing, but maybe I didn't really know how to. Like when I was bringing in a new package, I was a little bit worried always, but I didn't know if I was following the right method for bringing it in. And really, it wasn't my top priority. I just wanted to get my thing to work, my thing to run, and it's great to have this framework to kind of help you know that you're consuming it securely. So let's start off with some of the attacks that we're a bit worried about. Like I suppose LeftPad was not really quite an attack, but it's something to worry about.
Yes. So LeftPad happened back in 2016, and a upstream maintainer decided to pull their source code and their package from the public package manager. And back then, developers were pulling packages direct from the public package manager. So the
Yes.
fact that it wasn't there anymore, suddenly their build broke. And the headline said, LeftPad pulls their source and breaks the internet,
Yeah.
Um, so that's why using package repositories such as um,
Cloudsmith. Yeah.
Cloudsmith is advised in the S2C2F.
Yeah. So let's start with level one because I know big um, a big focus on level one. I know there's 4 levels in this. A big focus on level one is to securely to make sure you're consuming your open source all sort of the same way. And so, do you want to go into how you can do that?
Yeah. So yeah, we organized the S2C2F in the maturity levels.
Hmm.
Level one, in my opinion, the way we structured it, level one is kind of like the bare minimum.
Yeah.
It's the you need to have some sort of governance on your open source. You need to be scanning it for known vulnerabilities, inventorying it, and ingesting them into a package repository. And from there, that's kind of been the rule of thumb for
Yeah.
a decade or so. And but we can do better. And so
Yeah.
the maturity levels kind of move us up in improving how we securely consume open source.
Yeah, so I think it's like use an artifact repository like Cloudinit,
Yes.
and also make sure you're using package managers where you can. So you're taking, that helps with versioning, it helps with repeatability, all these kind of things.
Exactly. And by consuming them into in an artifact repository, um, if your development team or your entire organization enforces that that is the approved method to consume your open source, that is one of the strategies that we recommend it. Inside the S2C2F guidebook, if you go check it out, there's 8 practices, and those 8
Yes.
practices kind of make up the holistic strategy that you need to have to secure your OSS supply chain. And it all starts with ingest it. Developers are incredibly creative with all the different ways that they can consume open source. And so to control your supply chain, you need to control how it's consumed into your development environments.
Yeah, and there's other benefits to that. I mean, if you're using packages, that means there's less repeated code all over the place. So it also helps with other aspects of software development. Yeah, so let's go into so level one, you're ingesting all at the same way. You're using an artifact repository, so you have some control over what package you're using. You're also having inventory in level one, which doesn't necessarily have to be an SBOM or a software bill of materials, but you have an inventory. And so
Yeah.
let's move to we have some scanning as well, right? You in level one.
Yeah, some sort of a software composition analysis tool, an SCA tool. There's a lot of them out there, and those are usually tools that can help you achieve your inventory as well. And
Yeah.
they should also scan for known vulnerabilities and license issues, etc.
Yeah, so level 2 is, it's a step up from there. There's more automation involved with the scanning, and I think that you will have to have some way to automatically, resolve vulnerabilities. Something like Dependabot is not, like, a big part of it.
Correct. Yes. So level 2 is all about let's improve the speed at which teams can update their open source.
Yeah,
Um, there were real world incidents where this one open source package confidentially disclosed their vulnerability correctly. They
yeah.
said, "Here's the CVE and here's the patch." But as soon as that CVE was announced, adversaries were able to research the vulnerability, develop an exploit, start searching for systems in the wild that were using that vulnerable version, and actively start exploiting within 3 days.
Oh gosh.
And organizations sometimes take much more time to update their open source, but we have tools that can help make this easier. Tools like Dependabot. And additionally, if you have tools like dependency review, which is another feature in GitHub, um, it shows you vulnerable packages as a comment in a pull request.
Brilliant.
That way, a pull request reviewer is empowered. They have this additional information, and they can say, "Hey, I'm not going to accept this pull request until you fix this vulnerable package." And those sorts of things help, you know, prevent security debt from building up and
Yeah.
reduce developer toil and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, I think even a really recent incident is the Log4Shell vulnerability in the popular Log4j package. And I hear even after resolving this, people have gone through their systems, they're happy, they're using the right package, that somehow the old package gets pulled back in again. So it's it's a
Yeah,
terrible cycle. So that you could use automation and sort of security checks in your CI/CD in order to prevent that reintroduction,
absolutely.
and that would be
Yes.
part of level 2.
Level
So
2 is all about improving how we manage vulnerabilities with open source. Yeah.
And so level 3 is a step up again. It's more like about enforcing that you're not using vulnerable packages, and like it would actually, presumably it would potentially break a build if you tried to pull in a vulnerable package, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So level 3 is all about more than just vulnerabilities. These could be like compromised or malicious, like typo squatted packages. So
Okay.
we started adding requirements about, your organization should start scanning open source for malware, which was kind of like a industry-wide gap for a while.
Yeah, actually,
Um,
that's one thing in Cloudsmith. Every package that's uploaded is actually scanned for malware, and we won't. It won't accept it if it's has a malware in it. So that's kind
right.
of cool little feature.
That is fantastic. Yeah. So see, S2C2F is all about like these requirements, and there's certain platforms and technologies and tools that developer teams out there can adopt to help them achieve these requirements and have it all built in.
Yeah, and you can kind of feel like as you're going up the level, you're kind of building these nets, and they're not all perfect, but it gets harder and harder and harder to get through to that to your software. I suppose that's what you're kind of trying to do.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And one of the features of level 4 is this allow deny list. Do you wanna go into that a little bit?
Yeah. I believe the deny list is in level 3, and there's deny lists are also a relatively new feature that's starting to pop up in various places. It's not everywhere yet, but there's some development teams that for whatever reason they might not want to use this certain open source package, and they want to make sure that no one accidentally pulls it in, and so like
Yes.
just put it on the deny list. Um, if you're in an organization where you have an incident response team that gets reports of new malware in open source, they should be able to just update the deny list and make sure um, nobody as part of the response plan, and to make sure that no one's accidentally consuming these compromised packages. Um, and so
Yeah.
that's yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
actually, we first in Cloudflare, we first introduced that idea of a deny list with Log4Shell, where we like you can deny it being introduced, but we're actually introducing a feature that's like you can add any package to that. So, and that came from sort of from Log4Shell, where we heard it more and more, and then some of our customers are really like really want this allow deny list. So that's going to happen pretty soon, so hopefully before Christmas. And yeah, so it's really nice to see that we're aligning with this framework. We're doing like the right things. It's nice to see.
that's fantastic. Yeah, and I love how S2C2F is helping people realize that they need these sorts of capabilities.
Yeah, and another thing in level 3 is incident response. So do you want to talk about what you have to do with incident response? Is it just to have a plan to see what you're trying to protect and where an attack is going to come from?
Yeah, as soon as there is a known incident that some package got compromised, um, your company might be like, well, what software is using that package? That's where the inventory comes into play.
Yes.
You want to be able to search through your inventory and see who's using this version of this package. And so once you identify who is using a particular bad package, then you need to start contact. So you got to update the deny list as part of
Yeah.
your incident response plan to prevent further bleeding, and then you go and you contact those affected teams. And based on what the compromised package is, or you know, they all do different things. But one of the common things that they do is exfiltrate secrets to a remote attacker-controlled server.
Yeah.
And so they might have to go start rotating all their, tokens and passwords and all those sorts of things as part of the particular response to whatever type of attack it was.
Oh, actually, you kind of brought up something that I was interested in is I didn't really see in S2CTF much on authentication. Do you advise multi-factor authentication as part of any of the levels, or is that like a kind of a separate sort of framework for security?
That's a very interesting question. So the S2C2F is hyper focused on how developers consume language packages like NuGet, npm, PyPy, Maven into the developer workflow and protecting developers and protecting your CI/CD system. Um, so authentication can be you're right. We didn't touch on that. Um, what are we authenticating to? Is it the developer authenticating into their CI/CD environment, or is it authenticating up to the public package manager? If it's authenticating up to the public package manager, that's interesting. I guess we implicitly say that because each public package manager has their own, they're in their own state of
Yes.
supporting multi-factor authentication. I think,
So you want something that covers more all those ecosystems.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So and let's go on
Multi-factor
to
authentication is, for the record, it is recommended, and specifically a phish-resistant form of multi-factor authentication. I think, like, if you're using MFA that sends you like a text message, those have been proven to be intercepted, and an attacker could. Those that's a less secure form of multi-factor authentication.
Okay, cool. So let's go on to level 4. So level 4 is would you advise this for um all software repos or all
Yeah.
software builds, or is it like the builds that are uh, dealing with more important information, or what do you think?
Yeah, so level 4 is all about defending against the most sophisticated adversaries.
Okay.
And as
So
we've
we're talking
seen,
about like, like kind of nearly a company that would like ransomware company or something like that, where or a state agent sort of thing, is it?
yes, yes. So nation state actors where they are well funded, it's their full-time job, they are the most capable and sophisticated adversaries that are out there.
Cool.
And um, they uh, so when you think about incidents like SolarWinds, I know SolarWinds wasn't OSS related, but the attacker had a presence on the build system and was able to
Yes.
silently introduce a backdoor while the software was being built. So think about all the open source you consume. How do we know that the build system wasn't compromised when that open source was being built? So level 4, it's not advised for everyone. It's largely a aspirational level,
Hmm.
and it's only recommended when uh, it's worth reducing the risk for, like, if you have some sort of a critical infrastructure or some sort of critical um, software for your business that you're building, it might be worth the investment to go rebuild the open source from source yourself.
And so that would entail cloning, forking that open source, and maybe fixing something before the fixed was introduced to the upstream.
Yes. So so this is how this all gets tied together. So in level 3, we do advise that you might want to consider mirroring the source local to your company or your development team, um, for business continuity and disaster recovery purposes. What if somebody did remove their open source, um, and if that piece of open source was critical to your software, don't you want to be able to continue to maintain it? And the other benefit of mirroring the source locally is that now you can start to do proactive security reviews. So this is also a level 3 item. And
Okay.
if you are looking for the yet to be discovered vulnerabilities, then you as a participant in the open source ecosystem can start contributing fixes back upstream and being a positive member of the open source community. Um, and and so there's many benefits there. And then lastly, in level 4 is, what if you discover a 0-day vulnerability and you confidentially report it to the upstream maintainer, but you're not receiving the the urgency that you
Hmm.
have liked. If your organization is very risk averse and this
Mm-hmm.
particular vulnerability scares you, as a temporary measure, you could do a private fix and use this privately fixed version in your company while you continue to work with the upstream maintainer to get it fixed for everybody.
Yeah, and presumably you really
Emphasize the
want to. Yes, yeah. Sorry, I think I just spoke over you there, but temporary is a really important part of that.
yes, yes, because as soon as it's fixed upstream, you want to use the upstream package, of course.
Now you mentioned, so we went through the 4 levels, and you did mention solar winds. So I thought I would bring up another framework, SALSA. What's the supply chain levels assessment? Is it supply chain levels or something like that?
Yeah,
So
security levels for supply chain artifact. I'm I'm messing it up myself.
it's
So
like,
both.
oh wait, I have it here. Supply chain levels for software artifacts. Okay,
There
okay,
we
we got
go.
it.
There we go.
So this is another framework, and I think it works symbiotically with the S2C2F framework.
Yes, they are companion frameworks. So S2C2F and Salsa are both in the Open Source Security Foundation, the OpenSSF. Um, S2C2F is entirely focused on consumption, just how
Yes.
you securely consume open source. Salsa is all about production. How are you securing your source, your build, your release? And so
Mm.
these are complementary frameworks that can be used together. And so to create or illustrate a scenario, um, you kind of need both to have a holistic strategy to protect yourself in these days. Um, if a developer consumes a compromised open source package, that might be the way an adversary gets initial access into your environment. Once they have initial access into your environment, they are going to pivot and try to escalate permissions to get towards their objective, whatever that may be. But their objective might be getting a presence on your build system, compromising your software that gets shipped out to all of your customers. And so
And
that's
that would
why
be
you need
like solar
S2C2F to
winds.
protect you from that first phase of attack, and you'll need Salsa to protect you against somebody trying to compromise your build environment. And it's all about defense in depth and
Yes.
having layers of protection.
Brilliant. And I actually did hear that vulnerabilities have actually overtaken phishing as a conduit into an attack vector into systems. So it's definitely on people's minds. So, but is
Yes.
there anything you? Thank you for going through all the levels in such a quick time. That was just wonderful. Is there anything you'd want to leave? Um, want to end with?
Yeah. So I would encourage our audience to go check out the S2C2F for themselves. It's on GitHub. It's in the OpenSSF repo slash S2C2F. And when you get on the landing page, there will be a link where you can view it in Markdown or view it as a PDF. And hopefully the guide helps you. We also have bi-weekly meetings where we continue to talk about the S2C2F within the OpenSSF, and anybody is welcome to join. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you, and would love to hear your stories of trying to adopt it, or if you have questions, happy to help.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Adrian. And I might pop into that meeting as well. I'll be quietly there in the background for but thank you so much for today. I know people are going to love this. So
Yeah.
talk, and I'll
Thank
keep
you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.